Recently, I attended the new VCF event here in Socal. I was planning on doing a traditional style of vlog, but I wasn't really that used to it, and me running on only a few hours of sleep didn't really help matters, so I'm just doing a voiceover instead. I've wanted to attend a VCF event for years now, but the closest one ever to me was VCF West, which is up in the Silicon Valley area, which is still too far for me to seriously consider going. Thankfully, VCF Socal was held in Orange County, meaning I could do the trip and event all in one day. I didn't have much of a goal going into the event, like to meet YouTubers or see a particular exhibit or buy something specific like that. To be honest, the only YouTuber I actually knew there was Action Retro, who, by the way, said my Pentium 4 shirt was very cool. I mainly just went to see what a VCF event was like, but I would be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit excited to try and score some good deals on stuff that's either too expensive on eBay or that I've just never come across locally. It was a bit of a drive to get there, about 2 hours or so with good traffic, but nothing I can't handle. For the fellow car enjoyers out there, I'm driving my 2000 Honda Accord LX, has the F23 inline 4, unfortunately paired with the 4-speed automatic. Thankfully, the transmission hasn't given me any issues yet, and hopefully not for a long time to come. The paint is terrible, the window seals leak like crazy, the rear motor mount is screwed up, and the AC has a slow leak, but hey, the tires could pass inspection in most states. I never get tired of that dash. Why is the clock wrong? I got there pretty early, so I was able to check in ahead of time, and if you plan on going, I'd probably go early as well. There was a decent amount of people for the first couple of hours, but the room really started to get crowded in the afternoon, and it made navigating the aisles a bit difficult. I only attended one of the panels being held, that being a guy who made a 7400 series Logic wire-wrapped computer, which was really cool. Should check out the panel recording thing whenever that comes out. Seriously, the wiring on this thing is incredible, but I mainly just wandered around and looked at everything a few dozen times. There was a lot of Atari stuff, which was very cool to see. One of the first vintage computers I ever got was an Atari 800 XL, and I've been meaning to do more with it and to do a video on it at some point. There was also an Atari Falcon, which was really cool to see in person. Lots of Commodore stuff there too, as you'd expect. This is actually my first time getting to see C64s and Amigas in person. Despite being one of the best single-selling computer models in history, I still for the life of me have not ran across a C64 for sale locally, or even seen one in person. Personally, I think I'd rather mess around with an Amiga, but I don't really have that kind of money. There was some 70s stuff too, a few terminals which might have actually been early 80s, but I don't know for sure. There was this cool Data General mini computer with matching terminal. Didn't look like it was up and running and working, which is understandable since mini computers are an absolute nightmare to work on. Serious respect to the guys who are willing to work on that kind of stuff. Definitely not something I think I would really want to attempt. Also a fair amount of Mac stuff, which was nice. There was a setup with a bunch of different Macs that had different accelerator cards in them, including a Quadra 700. Of course, the Action Retro booth, where he had Rhapsody DR2 running on a PowerBook, a Libretto, and a ThinkPad all at the same time. And probably my favorite Mac display there, all 5 iBook clamshell colors. I've always wanted an iBook clamshell, and I really regret not grabbing one 7 or 8 years ago when the prices were still halfway reasonable. The key lime is probably my favorite color because it's just beautiful to look at in person. But I also really like the blueberry and tangerine. Lots of modern hardware projects there as well, like FujiNet, which, to be honest, I'm still not exactly sure what it is. I know it's some way to hook various old machines up to the internet and access some online functions and services. Apparently it can also act as a disk drive and you can mount images over a network. Not sure really, I had it explained to me and I still don't think I got the entire picture of it. But it did still look kind of interesting. And the guys who made the Zulu SCSI were there, which is sort of a spiritual successor to the SCSI to SD. Basically lets you use an SD card as a SCSI hard drive instead of, ancient SCSI drives, which are all pretty unreliable at this point. But They're also working on an ATA CD-ROM emulator, which is something I've wanted for years and years now. They're still working on finalizing the interface for it so you can pick images for it more easily. And they said that you can even get analog CD audio out of it if you add the appropriate DAC add-on thing. Really cool stuff. Also a bunch of kit computers that you can apparently buy and build right now. At least I assume you can buy them right now. It kind of made it look like they are available. Including this really cool relay computer. Sounds absolutely amazing. I can't imagine it's useful for much at all, but man, that sound, I would never get tired of that. A bit disappointing to me was there seemed to be a lack of PC compatible stuff. There was one guy who had a really cool setup with 2 VIA C3s, and one of them was even running a Voodoo 2 on it. I have a VIA C3, and maybe I'll do a video on it at some point. It certainly classifies as a processor. I'm guessing the lack of PC stuff just more had to do with what exhibitors they got for the event. Hopefully in the future there'll be an extra table or two at least dedicated to PC stuff, as that's my main area of interest and probably a lot of other people's. But I do get the appeal of seeing a bunch of 8-bit and 16-bit machines, since, you know, most of those are long dead and really don't have much lineage in the modern day. The main thing that was capturing my interest, though, was what was for sale. I had to really hold back not buying one of these PowerMac G3s. I talked myself out by rationalizing that I still haven't really done anything with my G5, and that I should probably work on that first. But man, the G3s are so beautiful up close, it was really tempting. There was also this Pentium 2 Dell Dimension I was considering. I've always loved the way these Dell towers of the 90s looked. Some of the best mainstream beige boxes out there, in my opinion. And I didn't really have any decent slot 1 system, as all of my boards are either VIA chipsets, which can be questionable at times, or have bad caps that I need to get around to replacing, or they don't boot for whatever reason. Or they were VIA chipsets with bad caps. So that's even more fun. Although by the time I had come back, it was already gone. Oh well, maybe I'll find one in the future like it. It was $75, which was definitely a bit much for me to want to spend on such an old, Dell. But all things considered, that wasn't like the worst price in the world. I did pick up a few smaller items towards the beginning of the show. The first one I got was this Matrox G400. It's a Dell OEM card, and I still haven't figured out yet if it's a Max or not. Either way, it's not a bad deal at $20, since G400s, even just regular G400s, go for usually a bit more on eBay. Then I grabbed this mystery GPU for $10. It was just listed as a VisionTech card, and that it needed a new fan. I saw that it had NV in the model number, so I figured it was probably some sort of GeForce card, probably around the GeForce 2 or 3 era. Turns out it's a GeForce 2 GTS, so that's pretty cool. $10 is not a bad price for a GTS, even though I already have another one, and this one needs a new fan, but it appears this card came out of some sort of IBM, so either way, it's still pretty cool. The find that I think I'm the most happy with was this Model M. Model M's just do not seem to exist where I live, and seeing that this one was only $30, I just had to grab it. Way cheaper than what you'd pay on eBay for one, or a new one from Unicomp for that fact. Even though it's one of the later Lexmark ones, and therefore it's not as desirable, it's still in really good shape, and I consider it money well spent. It was getting to be around 2 p.m., and I was starting to get pretty tired, but just as I was considering on leaving, the consignment area started opening up. I ended up sticking around for 45 minutes longer just so I could get a glimpse at a lot that wasn't opened yet. There was some 90 PCs in there, including a desktop P75 Dell that I could see peeking out from under the cloth. I was feeling a bit of regret for not hopping on that Slot 1 Dell, so I was really hoping there would be some decent Slot 1 systems in here. As it turns out, the waiting was worth it, and there ended up being 2 Pentium 2 systems built into InWin A500s. I eventually decided to grab one since it had an Asus P3BF, a pretty nice 440BX motherboard that can even do 133MHz FSB. It was $65, which is probably the most I've ever spent on a single system pre-2010. But considering Slot 1 motherboards usually fetch at least $100 on eBay, and this was a complete system with a 400MHz Pentium 2 and a nice case, the price was definitely a bit easier to swallow. While the show was still open for a few more hours, I really just wanted to get back on the road before I got any more tired, and I was also getting pretty hungry. And of course, traffic ended up being pretty bad on the way back. It was also around this time I noticed my windshield had cracked. Seriously, I just had to get it replaced a year ago after it got pelted with a bunch of rocks, and it's already chipped and cracked again. Well, at least it's off to the passenger side. I was also considering taking a trip over to Micro Center since I've never been there before, but I was just too tired, and with how bad the traffic was, I think I made the right call on not going. So should you go to a future VCF Socal, or just another VCF event in general? Well, yes of course if you can, but I do have some thoughts to share. Honestly, unless there's speakers you really want to see that are spread across the 2 days, I kind of feel like this is a one-day event. You can pretty much see and do everything easily in a single day, and especially if you have to drive a little ways to get there, probably just opt for the single-day pass. I could see the multi-day pass being a good idea if you live or staying close to the event. That way you could split your time across the 2 days and make the experience a bit more manageable. You could then come early on the first day, see most of the stuff before it gets too crowded, and come back later so you can maybe score some good deals on the stuff that people just don't want to take home with them. But if that doesn't really apply to you, I think it's best that you just save the money and just do a single day. Also, if you do plan on buying stuff, I'd highly advise you to just bring cash. I saw a lot of people and the vendors struggling to get their card readers and whatnot to work. It looked like a big hassle and a lot of extra waiting and whatnot, so having the cash just makes the sales process way easier for everyone. But all in all, I had a great time, and I'd definitely do it again in the future. Seeing that the turnout was pretty good for the first day at least, I hope they do it again next year. Hope you guys liked this little vlog thing or whatever, and maybe stick around the channel to see some content with the stuff I got at VCF. So, have a good one.